Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Sunday Sermon with me, your magnificent host, Mike, your mentor. Hope you guys are having a good Sunday, capping off the weekend. Tomorrow it's back to the grind, back to work. I guess unless you're a hustler, you're working every day. So yeah, show me some love on this. If you're watching this live, put a little hashtag live in the comments below. If you're watching this, oh Lord, okay, all right. If you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and hit hashtag replay in the comments. So, welcome. If you're new to this page, be glad you found it. I don't think that it's any coincidence. You know, my mission in life is to help encourage men to answer the higher calling on their lives. The higher calling that we have as fathers, the higher calling that we have as husbands, the higher calling that we have as friends, and as leaders in the community. And let's be real, the world is the way that it is, with all the craziness, all the madness, all the sin, because men have not accepted responsibility for the things that we have been given stewardship over. We have been afraid to answer the higher calling that is on our lives. And in a lot of respect, a lot of men have no idea about this higher calling, what that looks like, what that entails, because there is a epidemic in the world today, especially in America, and that is men have forgotten what real manhood looks like, what real masculinity looks like. It's been twisted and corrupted and abused. And don't believe me? Look at all the sexually immoral, that's the word I'm looking for, stuff that goes on that's in the news, right? Men just doing or trying to do whatever they want with women, thinking they're going to get away with it, right? The Me Too movement, all these people that have, had their lives ruined because of the stuff that is coming out about them, where they've abused the women in their life. So, I'm a firm believer that when we know what our higher calling looks like, and two, when we're willing to be courageous enough to step into that higher calling, that we can then start to heal our society. We can start to heal our community. We can start to heal our families. We can start to heal ourselves. But it's definitely not going to be easy. I'm a straight shooter. I don't want to BS you. It's hard work, right? Facing these things, these wounds that we grow up with that affect every single area of our lives, whether we want to realize it or not. And I know this because this is what I went through, and I've had the opportunity to do life with men who have been on this journey as well, to observe them, to help them, hundreds of men. And the similarities are always the same. We come into our lives with either father wounds or mother wounds, primarily those two, and we don't, one, know how to address them. We don't know how to deal with them, and those wounds bleed into all the other areas of our lives. They bleed into our relationships with our spouse. They bleed into our relationships with our kids. They bleed into our work. They bleed into our friendships. And a lot of it is unconscious. I'll give you a great example. Right? So I grew up without a father for the most part in my life. Went to prison 3 different times before I was 10. And then disappeared, came back into my life when I was like 15 years old. Was around for a little bit, and then through a crazy situation, disappeared again. Came back when I was a senior in high school, disappeared. Came back when my brother committed suicide when I was a sophomore in college, disappeared. Then came back after I graduated from college, and then he died shortly after that. So, as a young kid, this left a huge wound in my heart of abandonment and rejection. And that wound, because I never knew how to address it, the steps to take, every time that I would start to somewhat move on and he would come back in my life, it just ripped that wound wide open again. But I never really got to the root of that wound. And one summer day, kind of got into it with my wife and decided, hey, I need to go to church. I don't know. I mean, that's where I run when I'm in trouble. And I went there, and our church was having this thing called Kairos, and it's this event where, they kind of help you learn to hear from God, like how God speaks, audibly through pictures, through these different things. And this night at church were these spin-off classes about different topics. And I can't remember the one that I wanted to go to, but I went there thinking, all right, I'm going to go to this one, and I was expecting God to show up and to answer me, because I was stuck right at this point in my life, in dealing with this stuff in my marriage. And I went there, and I thought I went into this class, and I sat down, and all of a sudden the lady who was leading the class, she started talking about fear and her own battles with fear and in life, and I'm like, I'm in the wrong class. But then I'm like, really, am I? Something told me to stay there. And she told her incredible story of overcoming fear, and then she asked us all to close our eyes and then to ask God basically, what fear looks like in our lives. And I did that, and God showed me. He showed me that I was a control freak. Now, I'm not a control freak in the fact that everything has got to be my way. And I'm having this conversation in my head, and I'm telling God this. I'm like, how am I a control freak? Like, I'm the most laid back person I know. People tell me that all the time. And he goes, yeah, you don't need things your way. He goes, but this is how you control people. He goes, you're a people pleaser. You will do and give people whatever they want so that they never have to leave you, like your dad did. And you figure that if you give somebody everything that they ask for and everything that they want, then they can't leave you, and they won't. But I'm here to tell you that that's not the truth. And he said, because I've given people free will. So you can be as nice as you want. You can give them all the possessions in the world. It's their choice if one day they want to get up and they want to walk out of the relationship. And that was a huge moment for me, right? Because I had been trying to literally unconsciously control these things in my life so that I didn't have to experience that pain again. But what helped start to break me free from that was God sharing that revelation with me that I really have no control over other people as much as I think I do. So that's an example. Well, tonight is the Sunday sermon, and on the Sunday sermon I talk about something that God has put on my heart. And last week we started a series where we talked about servant leadership and what that really looks like, what that's supposed to look like, I should say, in the world. So tonight is part 2. So let me share my screen here, and we'll dive in and talk about that for a couple minutes, and then let you guys go enjoy the rest of your night. Alright, Sunday sermon, week 39. Are you a leader or a follower? A servant's heart. It is September 29th or October 1st. It is the 29th. Can you believe that? Tomorrow is the first day of October. Holy cow, we've been rolling on these. So I put this picture in here because I think it's a good visual for being I think it's a good visual for what is required to be a leader. And that's being willing to, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but being willing to do things that maybe you normally wouldn't do or you wouldn't want to do. And I don't know about you, but the majority of people that I've met when it comes to cleaning hate cleaning the toilet, right? It's like the necessary evil. Like it's one of the nastiest, dirtiest jobs, depending on where you're at in the world. But it kind of represents like one of those things that when you think about it, it's like, like I'm too good to clean the toilets. Like that's not my job. That's a job for somebody else. But when we have the right attitude and the right heart and the right mindset, it doesn't matter what whose responsibility it is. We'll be willing to do that, whether it fits the mold of CEO or leader or coach or whatever title we want to place on it. So, quick review from last week. This is a picture and I like it, and it's represent. I can't talk tonight. It represents, society today, right? And it's a group of lemmings, obviously, going over the edge of a cliff, and it's, follow the crowd. And anytime somebody tries to speak up and say, hold on a minute, something's not right, they're met with, the collective, shut up, you moron, do as you've been told, it's for your own good. And you see this play out in social media on, a ton of different topics, right? From politics to sports to anything where people have an opinion that goes against the grain. They're immediately attacked and told to get in line. In original thoughts and common sense are going the way of the dinosaurs. So last week we talked about the SALT principle. I'll just hit it real quick. Ask this for servant's heart. Are you willing to do what is required and willing to do what is not requested? Accountability. Are you involved in the pursuit of your own spiritual growth and development? And do you show responsibility for your actions? L is for loyalty. Are you loyal to those around you? And then teachability. Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to change and grow as you learn new things? And these were the 4 characteristics that we really dove deep on last week regarding servant leadership. So for tonight, we're going to go a little bit deeper here as we talk about a servant's heart, right? Because leadership and everything that we do really comes from the heart. And our hearts can be corrupt. They can be extremely selfish. And, we need to not only renew our minds daily, but, renew our hearts and our attitudes as we desire to serve those that we have the opportunity to, as fathers, as husbands, as friends, as leaders in the community. And once again, the main question is, are you willing to do what is required? Right? What is required of you as a husband? What is required of you as a friend? What is required of you as a father? What is required of you as a member of your community? And I don't think I'm necessarily here to answer those questions for you. I have ideas about that. But these are questions that you need to think about and ask yourself, and you need to get clear on those things. Without being clear on those things, that's when chaos and confusion comes in, and we as men try to fix it, and a lot of times end up causing more damage because we've never really carefully and clearly thought this through. And the second part of this question, which is probably just as important, if not more important, is and willing to do what is not requested. I love sports, primarily basketball. Saved my life, made a big difference in my life growing up. Just being able to go to the court and just shoot buckets and think and get away from all the craziness that was going on at my house from day to day. And it was my escape. And in basketball, there's 5 positions, right? There's 5 guys, and they're trying to work towards a unified goal of you would think, right, of winning the game. Now, that's the difference between a great team and a not so great team. A perfect example is the Golden State Warriors. Hate them or love them, from a basketball perspective, I love to watch them play because they don't care who shoots the shot. They just want to win the game. Like, They want to win the championship, and all 5 of those guys on the court are willing to do whatever it takes to win the championship. If that means Stephen Curry, probably arguably the best player on that team, has to set a screen to get Klay Thompson open to shoot the shot, then so be it. He sacrifices the shot himself, and he does that. If that means Klay Thompson has to make an extra pass because a guy's running out at him and he can swing the ball to Andre Iguodala or to used to be Kevin Durant. I think he's moved to Brooklyn, but if he has to make that extra pass to somebody who's wide open and doesn't have a guy running at him, he's willing to do that. That's a perfect example of being willing to do what is not requested of you, right? And I don't know about you, but life is too short, and that's kind of the way that I approach life, is like, what is the end goal, right? And some days I'll get to shoot the shot, some days I'll have to set the screen, some days I'll have to make the extra pass, but whatever my role is in that moment, in that day, will I be willing to do it, whether it's been requested of me or not, because it gets me, it gets my family to the end goal, right? Which is to win, and win the day, win your marriage, win your relationship with your kids, win your friendship, whatever that looks like to you. So secondly, develop a great work ethic. Leaders, they lead by example. If you're the kind of person that you just talk, and you never follow through with what you say, or you never lead by example first, well, then you might want to examine that, and you might want to really think about what type of leader you really are. It pissed me off, to be honest with you, in college when we would go to the weight room to work out, and we were supposed to have this workout, and the guys who had the title of leaders, captains, whatever you want to call it, they wouldn't do their full workout. They'd skip out on it, or they'd cut it short, whatever the fact is, that would just piss me off, right? Like, I'm not one, it's kind of contrary to what I'm doing here, but I'm not one to just talk first. Like, I feel like you have to do it, and then when you do it, then you have the right to talk about it. And that probably holds true, I'd say, 90% of the time. Obviously, there's things like that I've never done, but I know that I shouldn't do, or I could give that wisdom and that advice to someone else to help them avoid pain. I've never burnt my hand on a stove, but I know good and well to tell my kid not to touch the stove because it's hot. I didn't have to burn my hand first in order to tell him, I guess is what I'm getting at. But leaders, they lead by example first. Next, if you want to be a leader, you need to focus on the success of others. I think in the world today there is a huge scarcity mentality. People are afraid to give to others out of the goodness of their hearts with no strings attached because of scarcity. They feel like, whatever knowledge they may possess, whatever resources they may possess, whether that's money or, like I said, knowledge or a special skill set, they grip onto those things and they hold on to them so tight, and they, it's like, these are mine and I can't share with anybody else. And it's really, you're just believing a lie. And that lie can come from, that lie has roots, and those roots can come from many different places. But if you're acting out of scarcity, you're actually doing those around you in the world a disservice, because you have something to give others. We've all been given gifts, and all of us have different thresholds and capacities in those gifts. And those gifts are not just for our gain. Those gifts are to help make this world a better place. And when we take those gifts and we squeeze onto them as hard as we can, and we use them only for our sole benefit, hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people lose out. Think of all the problems that were never solved because someone was afraid to share their knowledge. Think of all the inventions that have never been invented, all the cures that could have been cured because someone was afraid to take their gift and develop it in a way that benefited society as a whole. Whatever your giftings are, right, develop them. And don't develop them just for your well-being. Develop them because there will never be another person like you, ever, in the history of the universe. Think about that. Only you have these things that you've been given in the specific alignment that they reside inside of you. So don't bury it in the ground. And if you're a believer, you know exactly what I'm talking about with the story of the 5 talents. If you're not, crack open the Bible or go on Google and Google that, the story of the 5 talents. And you might be surprised on what you learn and what you pick up from that. Next, go the extra mile. Are you the type of person that, you just do enough? Well, if you want to be a leader and you want to develop a servant's heart, then you can't just do enough to get by. You have to do more than that. You have to go above and beyond, because that's one of the qualifications, that's one of the requirements for developing a servant's heart. I guess what I would say about this one and the one before is, you got to be careful, because sometimes I get myself in trouble, maybe sharing too much or not having. Let me say this: you have to have good and appropriate boundaries in place to be able to develop a servant's heart in the right way. Because if you don't think about or maintain these appropriate boundaries, there are people that will take advantage of that, and they will try to suck you dry because they don't know any better. They're operating out of a scarcity mentality, where they're trying to soak up and gobble up as much as they can for their own well-being. And if they get their hooks in you, they will do the same thing. So with all these principles, always steward them carefully, always have the right boundaries. And if you're struggling with that, if you're confused, it's my answer to everything. Pray to God and ask Him to help you. Ask Him to show you. Ask and you shall receive. And then finally, be a willing sacrifice before the Lord. You have this higher calling on your life, and I talk about that all the time. And the most prominent calling is a calling of headship inside of your family. And where we go as fathers, where we go as husbands, is where our family will go. And as a result, that's where society will go. But with this higher calling comes a great sacrifice. And we have to be willing to pay that sacrifice. For a lot of us guys, we have no idea what that sacrifice even looks like. And a simple example of that is, if you want to test this, Go to work tomorrow and ask the first 3 guys you come in contact with, hey, just out of curiosity, when did you know you were a man? And listen to the answers you get. You won't get the same answers from everybody. You know, you may even get I don't know. Heard that one before lots of times. Or maybe even I'm not sure I am, or what that looks like. Heard that before too. You know, these things are missing from our lives as men. And, you know, you're here, you're watching this, now you know. You can't claim ignorance anymore. So my question for you is, if you want to step into this higher calling in your life, you know, think about the sacrifice that's going to come with that. No greater love hath a man than to lay down his life for his friends and his family. John 15:13. No greater love hath a man than to lay down his life for his friends and his family. And life there is not just talking about physically. It's a sacrificial act, right? In your house, whose needs come first? Do your wife's needs come first? Do your children's needs come first? Or do your needs come first? Are you operating out of a mentality of, okay, I need my needs met first, and then I will give or I will give everybody else their needs, or meet everyone else's needs? Or are you forsaking your needs and what you really want for your children, for your wife, for your community, for your friends? I can't tell you what to do, but I do want to challenge you to think about that. Think about what your family would look like. Think about what your marriage would look like. There's some guys watching this right now where God is asking you to lay something down, to give something up, to make your marriage better, to make the home situation better. And for whatever reason, you're in that scarcity mentality. You're so scared to give that up, whether because it's comforting or because it feels secure to you. I just want to encourage you that you can trust God. And if He's asking you to give that up and to lay that down, He has something so much better for you to take place of whatever that is. And you're not going to be able to receive that when your fists are clenched, when you're squeezing on to whatever it is that you have and that He's asking you to give up so tightly. And that could be a multitude of things. A multitude of things. Yeah, well, that's it for tonight. Nothing else has come to mind or feel like I need to share. Yeah, that's a servant's heart. We're called to be servants for our family. Actually, you know what? I do want to share one last thing. Since the beginning of January, when I started doing this, we talked about what society used to look like, in the waterfall effect that these different things in society that have happened have affected our ability, one, to be men, and two, to understand what manhood looks like, right? The roles and responsibility around that. And here we are all these generations later, and we're lost. The good news is that you're here watching this and you're learning, right? But I want you to think for a second in your mind and imagine what your life looks like in 5 years, what your marriage looks like in 5 years, what your relationship with your kids looks like in 5 years. If you choose to embrace this, if you say enough is enough, I have not been acting like a man in my life and in my family. Because whether you realize it or not, this isn't just affecting you. This isn't just going to affect your wife. This isn't just affecting your kids. This is affecting your legacy as a father, as a husband, as a man. Because if I don't care, I take that back. Whatever happened to you to get you to this point that you're at, I'm sorry. Excuse my language, but sometimes life's a bitch. But now, I'm calling you. I'm giving you permission to let that stuff go. To start to move forward. And to change yourself as a man. For your wife. For your children. For your friends. For your community. And for all the generations that are going to come after you. Your kids' kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids. I mean, that's powerful. Like for me personally, like I'm changing my family tree. And you best believe that my son sees that. And that he's coming to understand these things. And that when he has kids, he's going to be able to pass this down and share these things with his kids. So, what greater gift can you give? What greater gift can you give to your family? What greater gift can you give to those that are coming after you? You just got to decide if that's what you want or not. If you do, cool. Keep showing up. I'll help you. I'll keep sharing this stuff. And if you need more than that, you need to get something off your chest, you're struggling with something, you need somebody to just listen, okay? I can help you with that too. If you need it. Alright, well, that's it for tonight. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And yeah, I love you. And we will see you tomorrow for My Life Monday. Have a good night.